Welcome to I Had No Idea. Safe and healthy use for technology for our kids. There's one kid that benefits from this, if there's one family that benefits from something that we talk about, then the whole thing's worth it.
Welcome to I Had No Idea, the podcast where we are pulling back the curtain on the digital world to help our children be more safe. I am Jenny Yannick. I'm your host for this episode. And today we're going to be joined by Heidi Stenning, who is with Wired Parents. And she is going to be sharing with us the great work that she is doing. We're actually connecting with Heidi. She is in Hong Kong, doing some great work there. And Heidi, I just want to start with give me kind of the origin story about Wired Parents and how everything got started for you.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks, Jenny. And hello from Hong Kong. It's a beautiful day here today. We're warming up for the summer. I'm British, have lived in Hong Kong for about 7 years. And I started Wired Parents because about 5 years ago, I was at the school gate with my children, having conversations with other mums. And so many times the conversations went to the fact that boys particularly were gaming. The mums were like, I can't get them off the phone. I can't get them off the games. I don't know what to do. And my son at the time was 14. Sorry, my son now is 14. So then he was about 9 years old. And for me, I couldn't understand why, first of all, a 9-year-old would need a phone and why they would be gaming the whole time. And the more I talked to the parents, the more I understood that a lot of parents just didn't really know what to do. They had no information. They didn't know where to go. They didn't know what other parents were doing. They didn't know whether what they were doing was the same as everybody else, or would they be isolating their child. And I had very firm ideas about what I wanted to do, but I think some people didn't. And so I started to do, research, and then realized that there weren't that many places to go to get the information. And I had already formed with my husband, who works in IT, around, and he informed me a lot on what we felt was safe for our children as they were growing up, around what we should allow, how much technology should we allow into the house, when should we allow that technology? And we came to the decision, well, what technology is here, it will be in our lives, but we need to do it in a safe way. So I started Wired Parents because I wanted to help other parents understand what it is that they were going to be up against, what was coming down the line, what was happening around the world, so that they could make the decisions for them, for their children, and for their families, but in the right way and at the right time. So I have a weekly newsletter and a website which tells parents what's happening, what's coming up, what changes there are to platforms, what they need to be aware of, and give them the information so that they can make their own decisions, rather than making decisions because of what another parent on a WhatsApp group has said, or because of what they say their child says their friend is doing. So that's really the basis of where it all started.
I love that. And I appreciate so much. And it ties into the name of the website of resources I'm trying to help generate and work with other parents in doing the exact same thing that you're doing, for ensuring that we do find some answers, we do find some resources, we can be connected when we are not aware of what's out there. I would not know right now with so many more things than when my own children were in school. So I think the connectedness for parents and what you're doing, and the download is the name of your newsletter that you share on your site. Is that correct? And the episodes that are shared are so informative. I'm already encouraging the folks who are listening to go check that out. And to be accepting of an understanding that technology is not a bad thing. It is not a terrible thing. It's using it in that safe and responsible way. So when you talked about, and we kind of hit on this a little bit in our pre-talks, what happens in other, because I'm in Texas, I'm in the United States and I'm in Texas, and I'm talking to parents that are here. Help me with kind of sharing the things that are developing in Australia and the UK, and why we should be aware of that as people who live in the United States and in Texas right now.
So the big one that everybody would know about in terms of social media, and the first people to stand up and say we need to do something about this, obviously, is Australia. So Australia put their hand up and said, okay, enough is enough. We're going to ban social media to under 16s. That happened in December 2025. I would be the first to say that I think it was an incredible thing that actually what they did. I think everybody was wanting something to happen, needing something to happen. And Australia stood up and said, okay, we're going to do this. About 3 months in, Australia has made a sort of a tacit admission that bans themselves are not necessarily working or are not necessarily the way to go. And so what they've done in parallel is they have also started to look at algorithms and the design features and decided to run those two things in parallel. So what happened with the bans is it's very easy to legislate. And if you've got the political will within inside a country, it's very easy to pass a bill and say, this is what we're going to do. But it's incredibly difficult to implement. You've got VPNs, older children are able to navigate VPNs very, very easily. And I mean, one anecdote is there's a lot of countries that are following suit in terms of age gating. And just recently, Indonesia implemented an age gating for under 16s as well. And that happened on March the 28th, which was the very day that we arrived in Bali on holiday. So my two sons were in the hotel, and I hadn't told them that Indonesia had actually stopped under 16s from accessing. My children do use Roblox. It's very locked down. So they do go on to Roblox. So they went, they were like, oh, Mum, could we just, we just arrived off the plane. One of my sons actually had an ear infection. So I was having to calm the situation down. And it was like, okay, you could just go on yes, okay, we're tired. Just, do a couple of minutes while we're waiting for the doctor to turn up. And they were like, oh, we're not allowed on. It's blocked us. Without even asking, they just put a VPN on and they just circumnavigated the whole thing. And so it's incredibly easy for tweens and teens to work around that. So Australia has been very honest and said, okay, it's not working necessarily that great, so we're going to have to implement something else alongside it. So the design features, the algorithms, the infinite scrolls, the notifications is the thing that they are now looking at and pushing the big tech companies to change. So the other countries obviously are following suit behind Australia. So you've got a lot of different countries that have been age gating. But the emerging trend in terms of helping families manage social media with children, because they know that they can't necessarily block them, is actually to target the algorithms that sit behind it. Now, just recently in New Mexico, a judge has actually taken Meta to court and said, you need to change the features, the design features, otherwise we're going to sue you, which is effectively what they've done. Meta has turned around and said, well, we can't guarantee that we can stop 99% of under 16s going on here. Therefore, we're going to strip all of our services out of New Mexico. So Meta may decide to not have their services within New Mexico. So they would rather take those services away from the state, and because they say it's too difficult for them. But the thing, I don't think it is necessarily too difficult for them. It's just that they would rather lose those people for the time being, knowing that once they hit 16, they'll get them back again. So there are ways in which people are trying to force the big tech companies to actually change the way that the apps are running, and to actually really target the harmful parts of the apps, rather than just banning children per se, which is what they're finding very, very, very difficult. So
So how
what's
would that
happening?
work? I'm sorry. Please continue, because I've got. I'm thinking of the geographic way to shut down a certain area in a state. But please
I
continue,
don't
because
know.
that's
I have no
intriguing
idea
to me.
how they would do that.
Hmm.
I don't know. I don't know how that works. But that's what they've said, is that they will effectively pull their services from New Mexico if they said it's too broad reaching, it's too difficult. They can't guarantee that 99% of under 16s won't be able to access Meta's services, so they would pull those. So it's actually in court at the moment. A judge has them in court, and they're actually hearing. So the judge is saying you need to redesign the way that Instagram works, the way that Facebook works, so it becomes a lot less harmful to children.
Well, and I see from your download newsletters that you're asking parents, check your child's Roblox birth date this week, or check
Yeah,
your child's Instagram birth date this week. So some of these
yeah,
things that are going to try to help with what you, I assume you're saying, is the age gating, because we know that kids or anyone can get on, they can enter a birth date, and the system just accepts whatever the birth date is. You know,
absolutely. Yeah.
there are folks who say underage and underage that, and as you just said, with VPNs, and if our parents are not aware of what VPNs are, there are ways that even a child can get around some kind of a safety feature with any platform or app, and that's and it's an easy thing to do, like as you just said.
By marking which country you're in, effectively.
Right. Okay.
Yeah,
So they
yeah.
would be able to enter anything in, and that's what makes me wonder too, how you would shut down the geographic location for one state or one part of a country. I mean, if there's that degree of sophistication, and we have AI that can do so many other things, it makes me wonder how impossible this actually could really be to
Well,
try to.
that's actually really also really interesting, because just this week, Meta have said that they will use AI to basically search accounts that they deem to be under 16s. So they're going to look for typical teen behavior, photos that
Wow.
you've got of birthday parties, photos of cakes. What does your physical bone structure look like? And is that consistent with somebody who's under 16? What sort of height are you? And so if you have put in a fake age of I am 16 or I am 18 and I'm able to get on the app, if the behavior that is being shown on the app, it will automatically put them into a teen account. Or if they're under
Wow.
13, it will chuck them off completely. Now, they say that they've already done millions of accounts, but that's being rolled out. I think the first one is Facebook is going to be rolled out in the US, and then after that, Instagram will be rolled out, and then it will go into the EU and UK and other countries. But
Wow.
that is one way. So effectively, Meta is saying, we know that it's unsafe for children to be on an account if they are under 16. So therefore, we'll put them into the more protected teen account.
Okay.
But we are not going to guarantee in New Mexico that we're not going to change the design features that makes it harmful. Therefore, we'll just lose you. We'll forget about you. So it's kind of like an admission and a turnaround at the same time. so so it's a very nuanced and interesting sort of way of they're sort of approaching it with two prongs, I suppose. But in terms of your original question, why should you care in Texas? I think it's because what is happening with Australia, other countries are looking at. So if Australia ends up being it is the test case, and we don't have the information, and the full information won't be due until December 2027, so 2 years after it's been implemented, to see how well it's working. But other countries are following suit. Some are saying, as Indonesia, yes, we will ban under 16s, we will ban under 15s. Every country is sort of setting their own age gating. Other ones are saying, we would like to ban at the device level. So they are pushing Apple and Google to actually ban at the stage of purchasing a phone. And that's actually a blog post I've got coming out this week, and the analogy I've heard for this one is Google and Apple have said, our app store is a store. And so, yes, if you go in and you want to purchase an app, then you have to purchase that app and you show your ID at purchase. So we are just a normal store, and you decide to buy that alcohol or that app and you show your ID at that point. And Meta have turned around and said, yeah, but you're basically a liquor store. So you need to show ID when you come into this liquor store. So when you buy an iPhone, you would have to set your iPhone up with your age, and then anything on that phone is then age appropriate. Now, obviously, Meta would prefer that because that takes any onus off Meta or TikTok or YouTube or whoever, and say, well, it's not my fault. It was done at the device level. If they failed that, that's not our problem. And that's a huge, obviously, financial leverage or responsibility that has been taken off them. But obviously, Google and Apple have said the reverse. They don't want to be responsible for people going onto apps after they've actually got the device, because they have no control over that. So that's another way that people have been talking about it. But the big emerging one, as I said before, is where they're saying it's really hard to age gate. Let's just attack the actual design of the app. And the EU has come together as a bloc. The UK is thinking about this. So there will be different things happening around the world, and depending upon where you live and what your government, and in the case of the States, whether it's your local, your federal government decides to do, but they are watching what's happening around the world. They are watching to see what works, what doesn't work, and that may be coming down the line for you in a bit. There are quite a few states that have been going to court, and they've been putting things in front of judges, but there's a lot of and First Amendment pushbacks on freedom of speech and things like that. So it's different. Every country has got its own difficulties. So I think the one thing that the countries are learning from each other, though, is that they need to see what each other's doing in order to make decisions and then implement that at the local level.
Wow. That is there's a lot of developments. There are a lot of things. And I know that seems like inching forward, and it's horrible to say that I'm glad in a way there is at least an admission, an understanding that algorithms are programmed in ways that do serve whatever the agenda is for that company, for keeping the user engaged, even if that user is an underage person who's not even truly fully aware, capable of making those decisions because they're not at a mature level yet. And that's something I believe a lot of, and it's something all of the folks that we have talked to so far with I Had No Idea, I believe are very unified in, is the responsibility for design. And that being something that I'm wondering, I mean, why is it so hard to undo? Why is it so hard to have more safety features that are in place for that? And in talking to and speaking with youth, one of the things, and I'm going to ask this too about my next question regarding parents, helping parents have awareness and the tools that they need for making these decisions. I ask students this question, especially high school students in Texas around the age of 16 to 18 years old, about how much they are engaged with younger siblings who are in that way early age range of 8, 10, 12, or 14. And sometimes in presentations I will say, I'm wondering how many youth of your age have helped younger siblings have access to accounts for things that parents may not know about. And I'm telling you, in audiences that I ask, there are a lot of instances that an older sibling may do that, just thinking that they are helping their younger sibling out, getting to play a fun game. They're not thinking about the dangerous part of that. They're just thinking about the fun pieces of that. And because they themselves may not be aware of the dangers. And we kind of talked about that in a little bit for how can we help parents? What are the things that we need to help our parents know right now about this safety, some of the misunderstandings that may be out there that you have been seeing in your work?
Just on that one point, I think the older child helping the younger one, for me, the thing that sticks out mostly is probably the privacy and the data collection aspect of it.
Yeah.
I think that is something that we are more aware of as adults. I think we have gone from having nothing to having technology and seeing that, okay, they're asking me, click on this, accept this, privacy policies. I never really had to do that. I have to do it now. What are the, I think to a certain extent we are a little bit cynical of those things because we've not had them. I think teens today who have entered the world, and when my sons are 12 and 14, they have only ever known technology. So for them, I just want to get past it as quickly as possible to get to the game. I want to do this. I don't want to care about all of that. And so so if an older child is helping a younger sibling, the conversation around that isn't happening. And so I think one of the biggest things that a parent can do is really talk to their child about privacy. What does that mean? And that means different things to different ages. So if you're lucky, they are having this conversation in school in IT lessons.
Yes.
My children do, and as they get older, they talk about more and more. So hopefully that is happening, but I appreciate that may not happen in every school, depending upon situations and geographies. But to a younger child, what does that mean? It means that even giving your school name is privacy, that data you're giving away. Giving away your pet's name is actually data as well that you're giving away. And even just doing a quick voice note in itself is actually data. With AI and voice generation, that is also data that you're giving away. And when it comes to older children, teens who are old enough to understand, I think telling them that if you are not purchasing a product, then you are the product.
Wow, that's
So if
powerful.
you're giving away information, then they are getting something from you in order for you to get the skin on the game, to get the weapon on your online game, whatever it might be. So there's always an exchange. Nothing is for free. And so be aware of what it is you are giving away in order to get what you want. So if that older sibling is helping a young child, that conversation is possibly missing. They're getting on there and they're doing all sorts of things before they realize. So I think the privacy and the data is one of those conversations that really needs to be had.
Wow. And I wonder how when we in education and schools here, we focus so many times on academic things. Absolutely, that's what we intend and should be doing to help our children learn and achieve. I'm wondering how, because students spend so much time in a school setting, even a private or a charter or learning even on their own through homeschooling, should this be a bigger topic in education while children are learning? I'm wondering, with 93% of teens having access to a device, I'm just wondering, what are different ways we can try to have a more robust way to work together with our parents and teaching children from such a young age these things to be safer and healthy online. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, definitely. I think my my children's school is very engaged when it comes to IT. I've been to presentations about the AI tool that they've implemented, which is a very educational based IT tool. So it's not a bog standard one off the shelf. They've actually gone out and purchased it, and it basically pushes back information all the time to the child. And one of the big things that they've said is they don't want to steal their child's education, which I thought was a really great way to put it, because if you're just thrown information and you accept it, there's no critical thinking, and you just copy and paste, there you don't really need to go to school, do you? You could just sit at home. You could just do that all day long and submit assignments. It
Right.
doesn't mean that you're actually learning anything. So in terms of AI, absolutely, there's a whole section that I think schools need to address. And if they don't, I suppose there's two schools of thought on it. Is one is, well, let's not have anything. Let's just carry on as we are. But how does that set a child up for the future when they will be entering a workforce that has AI? They need to understand how to use it. How do you use it in the right way? How do you not just accept everything that comes out? How do you start? How do you critically think about what the information is that you've been given? And how do you sanitize that? How do you make sure that it's correct? And so that is, to me, is the biggest issue probably facing schools today. A lot of parents don't understand AI themselves, and I think feel very ill-equipped to talk to
Sure.
their children about it.
Sure.
So I would start asking questions of the school. What are you doing? And if they aren't doing anything, then I think the the onus then unfortunately needs to come back on the parent. But if the parent doesn't understand it, then it's on them to really understand. But I think that is one of the biggest things. But I think in terms of the things that maybe they can control more is talking to their children about data, as we've just said, and talking to them about the design. The design of what you're looking at has been honed over the last 15 years by some of the smartest people in the world who have had billions of dollars at their disposal. So you are fighting a losing battle to a certain extent. And that sounds sounds very negative, and I don't mean it like that. But I think if you understand that you're not a bad parent and you're not
Right.
the only one that doesn't know how to do this, and there are so many people out there who are also struggling, and the fact that 90% of parents have an argument with their child about technology once a week, then you are the same as everybody else, and we're all fighting the same battle. So do not feel alone. But if you can teach them that the design is there for a reason, question everything, and to stop, I think, and this is something that I need to get better at, is to stop counting screen time and start questioning what is actually happening on that screen when you are on there. It isn't necessarily the amount of total time that a child spends on a screen is actually what they're looking at. Two children can spend the same amount of time on a screen and have two totally different experiences depending upon the content that they're looking at. And I would say that one of the biggest things that biggest takeouts, if I could leave it, a parent with something, is to say, do not have, and I hear this so many times, I'm sure you have as well, do not have phones in bedrooms, do not have devices in bedrooms, and do not leave those devices in bedroom at night. Nighttime is the worst time for scrolling for lots of different reasons. There's the blue light, it keeps you really wired, they can't sleep. But if they have the device and they're using it as an alarm clock, there is every reason, if there's notifications popping up, if they're not putting it on silent, they are scrolling until very late at night, and they are disrupting their sleep and depriving themselves of sleep. And the research now is saying that is actually the biggest driver of depression and anxiety in children, more than the actual content. Now, I'm not downplaying the content, because I think, again, coming back to algorithms and all that thing, it is a big problem, and that needs to be tackled. But the one thing that parents can do is just take the phone off the child. And I've had a friend who actually used to take the phone off her 17-year-old son and lock it in a cupboard and sleep with the key literally in her pajamas at night, so he couldn't get it. And she had to go to that extent, because otherwise he would take his phone and have it in his room at night. So it is a problem, and I have had people email me via Wired Parents saying, my son is addicted to gaming. I don't know what to do. How can I stop him from doing it all night long? And it can escalate very, very quickly, I think, out of control. So, I mean, we have a rule in our house: absolutely no phones for my younger son doesn't have a phone. My older son does, but never, ever in the bedroom. No devices ever in the bedroom, and they all get put in a certain place, and then that's it, done. Never at night. So on a practical level, some of the things we can't, redesigning algorithms is a much bigger issue, and that's at governmental level. But there are things that we can do on a practical level.
Wow. It's so intriguing to me and interesting that this is a parenting age where there is something introduced into a relationship, your home relationship, your children relationship with your parents. And we know, growing up, I'm a Gen Xer, we thought our parents didn't know a lot. We loved our parents, we were connected to our parents, but we didn't really have sometimes that bond, because we were trying to test what our limits were and learn who we were and our own identities. And that was hard enough. And coming into that relationship now is something that has such a great degree of influence. And I will share, when my children were growing up, we would go on family vacations to go on camping trips. And my husband actually would pull out the cell phone map and find out where, because back in those days, the map wasn't completely covered. There were bald spots where there was no reception, and that's where we would vacation, because we could say, there's no reception. I'm sorry, we're not able to get you to your device right now. And we thought the kids, and they did at first, they sure didn't like that. But over time, we realized that when we filled it with other activities that balanced that, those became times to make memories. And it was kind of a natural thing that occurred, to where they started getting more used to trying to have balance. And we didn't even know we were doing a balancing act, like you just said, of trying to infuse experiences and things that weren't just about screens. And I can imagine now it would be very, very difficult to have those conversations and to be strong. And we encourage parents to have those boundaries and to put the rules into place, because it is about safety and what is in the best interest of children. So I want to just encourage our parents who are listening to know that it is difficult to do that, but it is possible, and it is in the best interest of children to have that. And it's so sad to hear about the sleep interruption and the contribution to depression and to anxiety and to mental health conditions. May is Mental Health Awareness Month here, and so there is a correlation. And you were talking earlier about what are ways that, just kind of expand on that a little bit more, to engage our youth about their device use, about it not being hopefully something that seems so divisive and intrusive when we ask them, what are you looking at right now? What is that game that you're playing? Tell me more about that. What are some ways to kind of encourage connection for parents and the kids regarding the device?
I think, look, I'm not a gamer. I have absolutely zero interest in gaming. Zero interest. However, my husband used to like doing it, so I have to defer to him in terms of what do we allow, what is safe. Before my oldest son had a phone, the boys had iPads. I mean, I think probably, as most children do, they seem to have had an iPad forever. I mean, I remember getting a very simple one when my younger son was little. And as I say, a lot has happened, an awful lot has happened in 10 years, and a lot has happened in 5 years. And every 5 year increment, I feel like there's a massive change. And again, now I think we're changing with AI. So when my
Right.
14-year-old was 2, I knew so much less about everything. So of course I did give the iPad, and I was like, my sons are only 18 months apart. So I was nursing one, and I still had an 18-month-old, and it was put the TV on. Oh, here's, have a look at this cartoon. And I did as every parent does to get, some peace and a bit of downtime. And so they had the iPads, and I'm starting to get very anti sort of, putting the kids on. It didn't feel right. And then my husband's like, oh, let's get a Nintendo. And I was like, why are we getting a Nintendo? I don't understand. Why are we bringing more devices into the house? Isn't that enough? Like, they're young. And he said, Heidi, when they're on their one device, then it is a singular game that they are playing, and they are playing it by themselves. And he says, if we get them the Nintendo, there's 2 joysticks, they can play a game, it becomes more sociable. It's on the TV, they can play it, they can laugh, they can have some fun with each other. We can all play Mario Kart together, the 4 of us, if we get 2 more joysticks. And so I started to realize, I was like, yeah, okay. At the beginning, I didn't understand, but after playing it, I was like, I get this. I understand
Okay.
that this is becoming more of a sociable thing.
Gotcha.
So trying to introduce a sociability into it, for me, feels less worrying than when a child is sat on their own, lonely, staring at a screen and playing a game. So we do allow, there's a lot of controversy around Roblox, and I understand why. I think
Yes.
if you lock things down, my children don't have chat, they don't accept anybody that they don't know. The settings, they are in their age appropriate settings. If you go in and have a look, you can set that to make sure that they're in the correct one, and they won't be seeing anything. There's no advertising. And when they play, again, they don't play with their friends. They then get their another device or the same device, and they phone a friend on, I don't know, Zoom or Teams or whatever it is, and they speak to their friend on the same game, and they are having fun, and you can hear them laughing. Oh, do this, go do this, do this. So it is kind of like sitting in a room. Now, we are a very international family. We have family and friends all around the world. My son likes to play with his best friend who moved to New Zealand. We're in Hong Kong. He plays with some friends in the UK. So it's impossible for us to all be in the same space. So that's how they communicate, and that's how they keep the relationships going with people from all around the world. That I'm okay with. So I feel comfortable when it's a more social environment. Where I would start to worry is if my child were retreating and they were on their own, and it became a very solitary activity. So I occasionally say, oh, can you show me, what you're playing and what does it do? Because I like to see, how gory is this, or what is Fortnite, and what does that look like, or so every now and again I will have a look, but for me it's the environment of it that I think is as important as the content of what is going on.
That's important. I do appreciate the highlighting that you just did about the social aspect, or being able to see and know in an open space, especially in a home, if a child is playing a game, that you can be aware and you know that there are known people and known friends that are engaging in that. As we do have conversations with youth about what to do if they are approached by someone who asks for content, for information, for things they should not be sharing. I just talked to some teens about that today. And this naturally lends into the platform safety scorecard. Tell us more about that, and how that's been helpful and how that's developed with your work.
Yeah, the scorecard. At the moment, we track of 16 apps, but it gives you the ability to have a go on and look, input your child's age,
Mhm.
and then you can see which apps, as per current regulations, are able to go on to. You can also flip it if your child is actually on them. You can sort of bypass that and say, well, okay, they're not of that age, but show me the score anyway. And then you can
Mhm.
choose the individual apps that your child is using or they want to use, so you can go in and you can have a look at the actual score that it gives you, and that's rated by things like privacy and the data that's being given, sociability. So there's lots of different reasons as to why that app is given the score that it is, but
Mhm.
it's a really good high level overview of a particular app, if there's any benefits to it, what the risks are, and again, a one sort of one aspect of deciding whether you might allow a particular app into your child's life, or whether you feel, no, actually I didn't even realize that was the age for that particular app, I'm going to hold off onto that. So you can make a very informed decision as to what you are allowing into your child's life. So that's the reason why we developed that, because it's a very interactive thing. You can see immediately. We're adding apps all the time, but it's again, it's very much everything in Wired Parents is all to do with getting information so you can make the decisions that are right for you, your family, your child, at the right time.
I love that. And it's so easy to see for all of our listeners. If you go to Wired Parents and you go to the scorecard, there are arcs that go across, and the more darkened the color is from an orange to a red, and the more of an arc there is, the higher the risk is if
Red
you
is
were to
the
go
high
down
risk.
and look at them. The red is the
Yeah,
high risk. And I see Twitter.
yeah,
Twitter on the scorecard seems to have a very high risk level as it's 17 plus in stores. Common Sense Media, I know you've drawn in
yeah,
for
yeah.
influence from Common Sense Media, another great resource for all of the content areas that are here. It's a content risk, a contact risk, privacy, parental controls, data collection, transparency. These are all of the different categories under
Yeah.
every app as they are scored on the scorecard. So it's real, and it's very easy to access and understand. Looks like Minecraft's probably more safe. That's the first time think I've seen green.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Minecraft is actually very creative.
Hmm.
For children, I mean, that was my children's first entry into
Hmm.
gaming, if you can call it
Hmm.
gaming in that sense. Incredible. It's like Legos. It's a building block, and the things that they used to build was incredible. Mom, look at what I built. Look at my castle. Look at my pig. Look at my chicken. And but they can join in the same world, and they can be together in this meta world, if you like, and just and build things together. And so it there you can obviously accept and play with other people in there, but it is a much, much safer world. Now, most children, I would say, tend to grow out of that as they get a bit older, and they start to want something that, looks, the
Hmm.
graphics look a bit better, and it's becoming a bit more, I think most people seem to gravitate to the Roblox, and then they go to Fortnite. I'm talking about boys here, but
Right,
Roblox,
of
and then
course.
it seems to be a natural path. And of course, they want to play the games that their friends are playing.
Mhm.
Roblox obviously doesn't rate particularly well because it is basically a portal for a whole load of other games
Right.
that it's not produced by Roblox. It's just other games that are on there.
Right.
Games come and go. I mean, I know my children used to play Grow Garden. We were talking about Grow Garden last night. I said, "Oh, how many do you play Grow Garden anymore?" "Oh no, Mum, that's like." And they went on. There's only 75,000 people that are on Grow Garden, and they said most of those are just like fake accounts anyway. Like nobody does that anymore. But these games come and go, and they peak massively, and then they drop away because the next thing comes
The
along.
next big thing. Right.
Yeah, exactly. So That I think is the difficulty in knowing what it is. And that's why I say it's not about the screen time, it's about the content. What is it you're
Sure.
looking at? And if that the conversation needs to
Mhm.
be had on a regular basis,
Right.
to the point where it becomes normal that you are talking about what is it you're looking at? What apps? Now, I think I mean I we were speaking earlier about the fact that a lot of children and adults and their parents or carers argue about technology, and I think there is a natural um, I don't know what it is. There's a defensiveness around technology because I think as parents we've grown up kind of going, stop the screen time. The way that my mum, don't know about what it was like for you guys, but in the UK, when we had landlines, you'd be on the phone to a friend and your mum would be like, get off the phone. It's costing an absolute fortune. And we don't worry about that anymore. We've all got mobile phones, you text, it's not a thing. Whereas for us, we go, too much screen time is a bad thing. Too much screen time is a bad thing because we were told that it was the screen time that was causing the tempers and the tantrums. Now, I'm not discounting that. I really do think it does. But on top of that, it's about the the content, and it's about the algorithms, and it's about everything that is inside of the screen and what we're looking at. And I always say the phone isn't a problem. My children can have a phone, but it's like,
Mhm.
what are they actually looking at on their phone? That's the issue.
Yeah.
So yeah, that to me is the sort of the real crux of it is have the conversation on a regular
Mhm.
basis. Have a look at see what they're doing, so that if there ever is a problem and they are encountering things that they shouldn't, inappropriate content, somebody coming to them,
Right.
they know that you will listen and that you won't give them a lecture.
Right. I think that is the biggest scare for kids, at least when I've talked to them and I'll ask them about if something was very disturbing to you or someone was trying to elicit information or ask you to do things that you knew to be wrong or you were conflicted about that. Tell me reasons that could stand in the way of you talking to a trusted human adult. I used to just say trusted adult. Now I say trusted human adult. And the first thing they would say to me is, I'm afraid if I tell them I have a problem on the phone, they'll just take it away and
No way. Absolutely.
it'll
Yeah.
just go away. And it
Yeah.
still leaves the problem because even if they get the device back, the problem that they needed to have help and intervention with, it's still going to be there. And if not, another opportunity for the problem could come back. You know,
Yeah.
there are things, and as you said earlier, that we want children to be able to make decisions, to have critical thinking, to do things that they know to be healthy when they're engaged, and then to be able to talk to us and to say, this is the way I talk to the teens or the kids is I'll go, if something freaks you out, if someone's creepy, if there's something suspicious or sus, as they say, is there a person in your life you know you can go to and just say, hey, this really weirded me out, this was not cool, this
Yeah.
was not okay, I don't need to like have my phone completely taken away, but I kind of want to work through this, what do I do? And to me,
Mhm.
that's, I know that sounds like a pie in the sky ideal situation, but I fear that so many teens and young people are trying to handle issues, especially with sextortion, or if there's an image that leaks and they're fearful of talking to someone that they know, love, and trust. They're afraid of shame. They're afraid of the device being taken away. Those are real kid
Mm.
concerned kinds of things. My exit question then for this episode, if there's one thing that you could put on a billboard, something that's really huge that every parent in the world would see about your work with wired parents, what would it be?
It would be take your time, understand what you want to get out of the technology for your children, do some research, and make the right decision. It's a lot easier to make the right decision and introduce slowly than it is to reel back on a decision and take an app away, take a phone away from a child. That eats into the emotional relationship that you have. So do it, understand what it is you're saying yes to, and then introduce technology slowly.
I appreciate that very much. So that is a wrap for us for today's episode of I Had No Idea Cyber Empowerment. And we are very thankful that we had Heidi with us from Wired Parents. It's easy to find Heidi's website. It is wired-parents.com. And go check it out. Subscribe to her newsletter, The Download. It's free, it's quick, it's easy. You can see past newsletters that she has put out for you. And we'll see you next time.